Last Thanksgiving, I was driving home from college with my friend. I live in a very isolated part of Arkansas that requires driving for an hour in the mountains. There are a lot of blind turns, and the whole time you're driving on the edge of huge drop-offs with no barriers. I'm usually pretty confident driving through the mountains, but we were in my friend's car, so I was going slower than usual, driving about 5 over the speed limit. Almost as soon as we started the roughest part of the drive, another car was tailgating us, pretty close. This was stressing me out, and as soon as I saw somewhere I could pull over, I did. We get back on our way, and a few minutes later, I have to come to a screeching halt as there's a car stopped in the middle of the road. It wasn't on the shoulder at all, just stopped dead in the middle of the road. I immediately have a bad feeling and lock the doors. My friend is starting to get scared at this point and points out that it was the car that was following us. It's parked right before a hairpin turn, so I can't pass it. My friend started frantically telling me to pass it, but I didn't want to get hit by a car coming in the opposite direction or fall off the mountain. I honked my horn, but nothing happened. I couldn't even call for help because there was no cell service. We waited there for a while doing nothing. I honked a couple of times, and eventually a guy got out of his car, came around back, and leaned against his car just staring at us. My friend is freaking out even more, and I'm just frozen. I'm ready to floor it if he does something, but he just stands there staring. He's not checking his car or anything. This goes on for what seems like forever, but was probably 15 minutes. He's just casually leaning against his car, looking at us. This is when things start to take a turn. After just staring at us, knowing we couldn't drive around him, he opened his trunk and took out what looked like rope and duct tape. He starts walking to our car, and my friend and I are absolutely terrified. We had no idea what to do, so we just sat there with the car doors locked. Eventually, we saw car lights in our rear view, and then the guy sprinted to his car and got back in. He sped off, going dangerously fast, so clearly there was nothing wrong with his car. Shaken up by the incident, we start driving again, but we don't see anything else for a while. Then we pass the same car, parked along the highway a while later, and it pulls back on and starts tailing us again. I try to speed up and get rid of him, but he keeps following. Since we've gone far enough, we finally have cell service at this point, but I don't know if we should call the cops because nothing has happened yet. I called home instead and told my brothers what was going on and told them to wait on the porch for us. The car followed me all the way home, even down the long driveway to my house. I get to my house and my 2 brothers are waiting on the porch holding their deer rifles. I pulled in, and the car just went to the end of the driveway, looped around, and sped off back the way it came. We tried to see his plates, but we couldn't make them out because of how dark it was. Me and my friend were really freaked out, but when I told my other friends the whole story, they didn't think it was a big deal. I now make sure that I have protection whenever driving home. When I was a kid, my family used to celebrate Thanksgiving with my uncle, aunt, and 2 cousins. They lived about 4 hours away, so we'd meet at a hotel somewhere in the middle, eat Thanksgiving dinner at a buffet, then go Black Friday shopping together the next day. This specific vacation, in 1999, I had just turned 10. My parents and cousins' family reserved a suite at the hotel. My youngest cousin and I were thrilled to be spending the weekend in a hotel with an indoor pool. We were in North Dakota, so it was way too cold to swim outside. While the adults were in the room doing adult things, they gave us a room key and let us go down to the pool by ourselves. Since it was a big family holiday, there weren't a lot of other travelers. We had the pool room to ourselves until this man walked in. He was tall, fat, and balding, maybe late 40s or early 50s. I thought it was weird that he wasn't wearing swim trunks. His private area was just covered by skimpy, shower-sized towel that barely covered his upper thighs. I tried to ignore him and go back to our water games, but I was a little creeped out, so I kept looking in his direction. Once he lowered himself into the hot tub next to the pool, I noticed the towel was no longer wrapped around his torso. It was floating on the surface of the water, and I realized he was completely naked. He didn't say anything to us, but the way he looked at us so intensely scared me, like we were food he wanted to eat. Eventually, my cousin got intimidated as well and said she wanted to go tell her dad if this guy got any closer to us. As soon as she said that, the guy got up from the hot tub and started walking to the pool, completely naked. We rushed out of the pool as quickly as we could and ran to the room. We got back to the room and she told my uncle there was an old man in the pool room, naked and staring at us. My uncle and dad followed us back downstairs, but the man was gone. I have no idea what happened after that, or if a police report was made. Honestly, I'm not even interested in asking what happened because I don't want to think about it. I'm just thankful we got out of there when we did. I was on a cruise ship for Thanksgiving and went with my entire family. As an attempt to get away from my brothers, I stayed in my grandparents' cabin. On the first day of the cruise, I walked around meeting people, and some of the people I met were really into basketball just like I was. So we set up a scrimmage that night before the Thanksgiving dinner. The only problem was that the basketball courts closed at 7, so we would have to sneak in. My little group was playing every day and became our late night routine. Skip forward to the last night on board, where my group was playing a pickup game as we always did. I felt a buzz from my pocket, so I stopped playing for a second and read my text message. It was from an unknown number saying to go check on my grandparents. So not thinking twice, I said goodnight to my friends and went to my floor. After the long walk and the elevator ride, I made it to my floor. I arrived on the opposite side of my room, so it was a long walk. As I was walking, I saw this tattooed man staring at me on my left side. I'm a paranoid person, so of course I immediately thought something was going to happen. We walked past each other, but he stopped and said, "Excuse me, did you see the gentleman who came out of this room?" I shook my head no, and weirdly, that was the end of the conversation. I took a glance behind me and noticed he was walking in my direction. I sort of slow down to see if he will pass, but when he gets close enough, I turn around as quickly as I can and start walking in the other direction and decide to start running. I looked behind me to see if he was chasing me, but he wasn't. I was relieved until I heard loud footsteps, so I looked behind me once again, and it was the man chasing after me. The man caught up and grabbed me, but for some reason I was so scared I couldn't let out a scream. I was hoping someone would come out of their rooms to save me, but like I said, it was in the middle of the night and no one was around. He took me to this room where there was no furniture. I looked, and there was this overweight woman sitting on the ground in the shadows. The guy shoved me in and told the lady his shift was over and he was going to sleep. The overweight woman just nodded. Again, I was still in complete shock. My legs felt like 300-pound weights. The woman grabbed me and said she was getting married soon, and I was going to be a part of the last amount of fun she could have. She said this with a nasty, creepy smile on her face. Even in the dark, I could tell she had missing teeth. Some were even rotting. My vision started fading in and out, and I thought I was going to collapse, but suddenly, the buffet was coming up in my stomach and I threw up on her. After that, I ran out of the room and sprinted to my grandparents' room. My grandparents woke up and asked if everything was okay. I lied to them and told them that the security guard found us on the court while we were playing basketball and ran from him. How did he know I was staying in my grandparents' room? How did this person even know that I had grandparents on the trip with me? The guy must have been stalking me and saw me go to my room with my grandparents. The next morning, my family created a plan to go to brunch. While the waiter was taking us to our seats, I noticed the same man who chased me yesterday with an overweight woman. They saw me too, so they started staring at me. My whole family went to be seated, but I was in the middle of a staring contest. Luckily, my mom saw me and saw what was going on. My mom looked at me and then looked at the table and said, "The guy with all those tattoos proposed to the girl a few nights back." I ended up sitting down, so my back was to the table of the creeps. I never said a word about what happened that night. When we got back home, I was texting my new friends from the basketball court and told them what happened that night. One of them said he was chased by the same man, but was able to outrun him before he got caught.